about a year ago. And they're in the final stages of their introductory process before they did move out to a large acreage habitat. As we speak, their habitat is being finalized. We've been delayed a little bit just because we've had some pretty wet weather, surprisingly, for Colorado. And these 3 tigers will soon be going out to about a 15-acre habitat. But for the last year, they have been going through the process of getting to know one another. And even prior to that, they had to learn what tigers were. The 2 tigers that we're looking at currently, the male on the right, Panchito, he's only about 3 years old, but he was taken from his mother at a very young age and kept as a pet down in Jalisco, Mexico. The female on the left, Frida, was bought at a pet store in Mexico. She's about 5 years old. And she was kept chained to a wall in the back of the people's house. And I'm just going to move over a little bit here to Sangha. Sangha came from a traveling animal roadshow by Atlanta, Georgia. What they would do is pull this cage around behind a truck, and they would go to different kinds of fairs and carnivals and things. And they had a show where people would dress up like gladiators, and they would go in and interact with her in the trailer. And when she arrived, she had a collar on. They kept her collared and chained, obviously, so that people wouldn't have to physically interact with her. But what they were trying to do was replicate the movie Gladiator in the last part of it, where Russell Crowe is in the Coliseum with tigers jumping out of the flooring. And so you can see all these animals came from horrible situations where they never interacted with other tigers at all. So much of our socialization takes place, initial socialization, right here at what we call our tiger roundhouse. And what you're seeing here is an attached area, our tiger pool area, that is a major component of the tiger roundhouse. And so initially when these tigers got here, because they had never really interacted with other tigers in their life, the first few months was just getting to learn, hey, I'm a tiger, you're a tiger, this is how tigers play, this is how we communicate. And then, after a few months, we put Panchito, who's draped over the ball, and Frida, who's a little bit closer here, she just did a little bit of marking, and we put them next to each other. And we put them next to each other, and they got to know one another. I'll go right in there to Panchito. So we got Panchito right here. There we go. He's just filling up the frame completely at this point. So Panchito and Frida were neighbors. They had a chain link fence through there, next between them. And they got to know one another, and we saw that there was a lot of compatibility between them. So eventually we put the 2 of them together, and they became fast friends, great companions, and they even learned more about tiger social behavior. And Frida is directly below me right now looking up. I'm wondering what's going on here this morning. And then eventually, after them getting to know each other and getting very comfortable with one another, we put them next to Sangha, who we thought would be a very compatible female to these 2. They spent time together through a chain link fence, getting to know one another, getting used to each other's presence. And then finally, a couple months ago, we put all 3 of them together in this tiger pool area, which is very important because, first of all, it's neutral territory, so none of the tigers can say it's theirs and act territorial about it, so it's neutral ground. But it also allows us to observe them very closely on a very regular basis, and just to make sure that they're going to get along. So Panchito's just kind of hugging the ball up there. I'm going to switch and go way across here. You can see it's still a pretty good size enclosure. Hopefully you don't get a little bit dizzy there as I move along, and I'm keeping the zoom in pretty tight so we can get right down here and see what Sangha is doing. So Sangha, find her here. I might have to zoom out a little bit just to find her. There we go. So there she is. So right now she's down by some concrete structures. As you know from previous videos, we use a lot of concrete here because it's indestructible with large animals like this. But also, it's great for cooling animals in the summer and holding heat in the winter. She's enjoying the real sweet new spring grass. You can see her down there grazing a little bit. And what a lot of the animals do is they just bite into it and they get that initial sweet taste of it and then kind of spit it out. But just like your animals at home, they will occasionally eat it for digestive purposes. So Sangha has a life unimaginable before she ever got here. Like I said, she was at a traveling animal roadshow where she had to interact with people dressed as gladiators with people around.
What do you say?
So we can just see her down there. She's enjoying the morning. And looking behind me, Panchito's still wrestling that green ball. I don't think he's figured it out yet. And Frida, I think, is directly below us. I'm not exactly sure. So these three tigers have been together now for a couple of months, and we're going to zoom out. I'm going to come back around in this pool area. You can see there's lots of water features. Tigers, of course, love water. And so we're going to get back over here and zoom back in on Panchito, because now he's wrestling that ball pretty good. So those are big boomer balls. They're not a yoga ball or a light gym ball. They're made of very heavy, thick, high-impact plastic. You and I would be hard-pressed to even put a scratch in them. Of course, they're made to withstand the weight of the animals, but also their incredible power in those front forelimbs and their claws. Unfortunately, Panchito, the people that had him, declawed him on his rear feet. He still has his claws on his front feet. Because he was declawed on his back feet, we've noticed that he has a little bit more trouble walking. It's kind of aggravated some hip dysplasia, which is unfortunately a common experience of many of our animals that come from these captive situations. We specialize in rescuing captive-born large carnivores, and many of them come to us having been declawed, sometimes quite horribly, and it therefore then causes them to change how they walk. It puts different pressure on different joints and bones, and they have difficulty walking. But Panchito, because of the great substrate he has under his feet, it's all natural, is doing much, much better since he got here, in spite of the declaw on his back feet. So he's still having a good time there. I'm looking behind me. Sangha's just down there grazing on grass, and here comes Frida. She's come charging in there. Yep, there they go. Woohoo! There she goes. So these two have become, as I mentioned before, great companions, great friends. They really like each other's company. And we're able to put multiple tigers together because one of the things we specialize in here at the Wild Animal Sanctuary, is having these animals live in large acreage habitats in social groups. And we accomplish that by removing the things that these animals would compete for in the wild. And the main ones are, of course, food, territory, and reproduction. Once you remove those as sources of competition, the animals get along quite well together and really enjoy each other's company. So Frida here is trying to get a hold of that red ball. Chances are she's going to have to get her feet wet to do it, but a tiger loves that. You can see she's already just about waded in. She's going to walk around and see if it drifts over towards her. The tigers, as you know, are one of the few large cats that like water. The other major great cat is a jaguar. They also like and hunt in water just like tigers do. So she's just doing a couple things here. She's keeping an eye on Sangha down here, seeing if Sangha's going to come up and play with them. And she's keeping an eye on Panchito over there, who's still wrestling that green ball. I'm just going to zoom in with him again. Nope, here comes Frida again. They're just far enough apart. I've got to keep going back and forth. So there she is. I think she's a little confused because she can't get a good grip on that ball to pull it towards her. So here she goes. And you're going to notice, I'm just going to follow her. Here, there we go. Behind her is actually another tiger habitat. It's very well established. The tigers have been out there for years. It's many acres. And And that's another part of the socialization process that takes place here. These animals get to come out into this play area and meet neighboring tigers that they don't know from the roundhouse. So that just increases their social horizons. I don't see any. Oh, there is one of the tigers from behind. He's sneaking up. Actually, I think it's a she. It looks like Sophie, probably. She's watching these tigers very closely. And I'm just going to kind of point to her. There she is. And then we'll take a look at their habitat. It's a wonderful tiger habitat. It has a big pond. It has trees, underground dens, which our animals rely on a lot. So hopefully you can see that tiger sneaking through the grass. As you know, tigers camouflage very well, even orange, black, and white striped tigers in green grass. It's a great way that nature camouflages them. So she's sneaking up now. I'm just going to follow her, and then in a second I'll zoom out, and we'll take a look at their habitat. So we've got a little bit of wind here, because we're up on a deck, which is how we view our animals here at the Wild Animal Sanctuary. And we're about 35 miles northeast of Denver. But we view our animals from an elevated walkway system, which takes the pressure off of the animals. They don't consider the air above them as territory they need to be concerned with. So you can see that big pond out there. That's all part of this large acreage habitat that Sophie is walking along the fence of. And there's other tigers out there too. I don't see them right now. Sometimes we don't always find our tigers because it's so large, and the habitats are large and the grass is pretty darn tall. So now Sanga's out here walking along. You can see Sophie in the background. Rita, I think, is down there. She just came out of one of the underground dens. She was checking that out. And Panchito is still up there with that green ball. So for those of you who are just tuning in, this is the Wild Animal Sanctuary outside of Denver, Colorado. We specialize in rescuing captive-born large carnivores as opposed to wild-born. These are all animals that people have tried to have as pets or to make money off of. So they come from the most unlikely of places. A lot of them are just kept as pets, whether it be in someone's backyard, might be kept in a crawl space, a corn crib, a tool shed, sometimes a stock trailer. And a lot of them come from commercial establishments, whether it be roadside zoos, traveling circuses. We get them from fur farms, taxidermy shops, photo studios. So all kinds of places where you would never, ever imagine a wild animal coming from. I lost Frida here for a second, so we're just going to zoom in real close. Try to keep ahead of her. So Frida, as I mentioned, she's 5 years old. She was kept as a pet. She was bought at a pet store, actually, in Mexico. And the people quickly realized, when she was about a year and a half or so old, that tigers don't make good pets. I'm surprised they actually had her that long. She was turned over to an establishment in Mexico that we've worked closely with. There she is. Look how pretty that tiger is. She's kind of wondering what all the attention's about this morning. But she was turned over to an establishment in Mexico we worked with that provided a temporary home until she could come up here and live at the Wild Animal Sanctuary for the rest of her life. So in addition to tigers, we have about 70 African lions. We have about 55 tigers, about 190 bears on the property. We have about 450 animals total here at the Wild Animal Sanctuary. And all of them come from captive-born situations where they suffered neglect and abuse. And they come here and they simply retire. At the sanctuary, we don't breed our animals. We don't let people interact with them. We don't let people rent them or borrow them or anything like that. They just simply get to live out wonderful lives in retirement with others of their own kind. So, Frida's walking up there where that ball was, but you can see that's no longer where Panchito had it before because he moved it a ways. He kind of rolled it across. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see where he moved it to. So there's Frida. If you look behind Frida, to the left side of the screen, you'll see Panchito still wrestling that green ball. So we'll zoom in again. And I think he's finally figured out how to get a good grip on it and move it around. So Panchito's a young tiger. He's only about 3. Oops, he's going to go get Frida there, and Frida's making a mad dash down here, and I just lost her. There she is. She's just going to take a look at us. Once again, she's about 5 years old. Panchito's about 3. The song, I think, is about 12 or 13. But they've just been doing great together. We can't wait to get them out into their large acreage habitat before too long. As I mentioned previously, it's just about ready for them. We had to delay a little bit of building because the ground's been a little bit too wet to work with. It's a little bit too muddy for our work crews to get out there. She's going to disappear, get out of the view of the camera. So I'm going to go back over to Panchito, and he's now just laying in the grass, enjoying the sweet spring grass. I have a little bit of trouble finding him here. There he is. So we'll pull back in now that we found him. So he's kind of torn between eating that green grass and looking at that ball like he's going to go pounce on it. I thought he was going to. That's why I moved over there. So he's going to sneak up on it. He's going to come up from behind. And there he goes. He got it. So Songa's down here. She's grooming herself at present. I think she's probably going to wait until the other tigers are finished with these balls, and then she'll go have her turn at it. So Panchito found something on that ball that's really got his senses stimulated. As you know from our previous broadcasts on the Dodo, and we really appreciate their support of the Wild Animal Sanctuary, we provide enrichment for our animals. We provide these boomer balls in all the habitats. And this is one form of enrichment, is giving them obviously things to play with. Another form of enrichment is putting different scents and odors in their habitats, whether it be some kind of perfume, some kind of strong natural scents. Believe it or not, one of the things tigers are very attracted to is pumpkin pie spice. So sometimes we'll provide some stimulation of their olfactory sense by giving them pumpkin pie spice. Some of the tigers like obsession for men, so it's kind of interesting some of the different scents that these animals like. Believe it or not, most of the cats, the big cats here, really aren't crazy about catnip. A couple of our smaller ones might be, the bobcats and cerbals, but the big cats don't seem to be as stimulated by it as a house cat is. So we've been watching Panchito there. He's just going to take a break. So we're going to come back around to good old Songa. Absolutely beautiful tiger. Hard to imagine the life she spent for about 10 years where she was kept inside. I'm going to get her here. There we go. Sorry about that. So for about 10 years of her life before she was rescued by us, about a year and a half ago, as I mentioned, she belonged to a traveling animal roadshow outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And they would take her from venue to venue in a trailer where they would have people dress up like gladiators and interact with her. Obviously, there's no life for an animal like this to be on the road like that. Also being asked to, perform with people in front of crowds that are noisy. She had a collar and a chain on, obviously, so she couldn't get to the people. And so you can see there's one very content and happy cat there. And we just know, she's been thriving since she got here, that all 3 of these cats are even going to do much, much better when they get out to their large acreage habitat, because they'll have a lot more room. They can become more and more like the wild animal they were intended to be. So she's right here giving us a great look at her beautiful face. Has a little bit more of a ruff around her face than some of the tigers do. And that's just a genetic predisposition with some of the subspecies of tigers, plus individual tigers. So sometimes people ask us why these animals aren't released back into the wild. Once they've been born in captivity, that's not at all possible with animals of this complexity for lots of reasons. One is they never learned the necessary survival skills because they're generations removed from the wild. Secondly, they imprint on human beings as being the source of their food. And so even if you could teach them survival skills and find a place to release them, they're still going to view human beings as a source of food, not necessarily to, obviously to eat a human being, but as someone who would feed them. And then finally, and this is probably the most critical part, is there's really no room for them back out in the wild. As you know, most of our endangered species are suffering from habitat loss, so there would be almost no room at all for them to go back to. And then finally, most of our animals here are considered generic or mutt animals. That is, in the generations that they've been bred in captivity, they've just crossed any old tiger with any old tiger to get a tiger. And so our animals are not considered, worthy, if you will, for conservation purposes because they're a mixture of animal species or subspecies of tigers. So I'm gonna, let's see here, I'm just looking for Frida and Panchito. Frida kind of disappeared. So all of our animals live in large acreage habitats. Most of the acreages are anywhere from 5 to 25 acres. And most of the tiger habitats can be, 10, 15. We have a lion habitat that's up around 25 acres. So that's something that we believe in very strongly here, is that the animals get out in large social groups, that they have lots of room to roam in, and that they have minimal human pressure. So even though we are open to the public, as I mentioned before, this elevated walkway system keeps the pressure off of the animals because they don't view the territory above them as territory they need to be concerned with. And so by staying above them, we can view them without interfering with them. So you can hear some dogs behind us. Those are actually rescue dogs that live right here at the sanctuary. And they've helped us in times past by helping raise tiger and lion cubs that we rescue. We don't breed our animals, so we don't get them cubs here by design, but occasionally we rescue a pregnant female or a cub, and that dog pack that you just heard helps a great deal because they can teach animals about socialization, about hierarchy. They can be on the ground with them 24 hours a day, and they can wrestle and play with them. So it looks like our tigers are kind of taking a mid-morning break here. It's just after 10 here outside of Denver, Colorado at the Wild Animal Sanctuary. But I think we're getting close to wrapping it up. Songa, like I said, she's going to go over and check out the balls now that the other tigers have kind of taken a break from them. She's just checking it out. You can see her getting a pretty good sniff of it. Songa's just kind of strolling around here. Yeah. So Songa's just strolling around here. And for those of you who are either just tuning in or would like more information about the Wild Animal Sanctuary, be sure to look at our website. It has all kinds of information about what we do, how we do it, visiting, coming out for tours or whatever the case may be. It's Wild Animal Sanctuary, all one word, wildanimalsanctuary.org. And you can read about the various rescue stories of our animals. You can look at present and past newsletters from there. And of course, if you want to support what we do, because we rely entirely on donations, you can make a donation there. We get no government funding. Everything we do is funded by individuals like you who might be watching this, who choose to support the work we do in rescuing captive-born large carnivores. So Panchito now found the ball up there in the pond. He started to grapple with it a little bit, and then it pushed away from him. So he's seriously considering, I think, going in the water to get it. I thought we were going to maybe sign off there, but we might stick with us a little bit and just see exactly what Panchito's going to do. You see he has his ears back. He's thinking about it. Wondering, how am I going to get that ball? So he's hoping it's going to drift over towards him. It's fun watching them, obviously, you know, just like your own animals at home, try to figure out how they're going to do certain things. Well, he's going to take the easy way out now. He's going to go over to that green one that is on hard, dry land. That red one's just too enticing. He saw it, now he's going to come back to it.
Snap it up.
Okay, so we're going to leave Panchito there. Hopefully you folks, some of you will be able to come out and visit us. We're open 7 days a week. We only close 4 days a year. And so we really appreciate the Dodo letting us broadcast this morning. We appreciate all of you that have been here over the last 15, 20, 30 minutes. I'm not even sure how long it's been. And we look forward to our next broadcast. So in the meantime, Panchito, Frida, and Sangha are signing off.
Hey, shut it off, bro.
Yep.